Hello, my name is Shayna Singleton, aka the Herpes Goddess, and I am the founder of Herpes Can Never. The mission is to make everyone feel uncomfortable until the herpes community feels comfortable being open about their status and proud of their sexuality. And I'm so happy to have you all here watching this video. Today, I have with me my beautiful cousin / accountability partner for journaling. We meet up every day, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. to journal with each other for 30 minutes. But today, we're doing something different. Now, she is not a member of the herpes community, and this is on purpose. I wanted to get an opinion from somebody outside of the community, but I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Carlie, and I'm Shayna's cousin and accountability partner. I'm also a writer. I'm the creator of a merch brand called Merch by Carlie Rock, an emerging brand called Carlie Co. And I'm also a coach. That's just a little about me.
Okay. Thank you, cousin. Today's topic is I'd rather have chlamydia. Herpes Can Never provides 8 group coaching calls a month for the Herpes Can Never community. And every Friday, we talk about sex and self-care. This Friday, one of the Herpes Can Never cousins brought up a story about an argument she had with one of her cousins. And her cousin is unaware that she has herpes. And her cousin says, I'd rather get chlamydia 100 times before I get herpes. Now, I think I'm going to just leave it at that and get your opinion on that statement. Because my opinion is going to be slightly biased because I have herpes and my job is based around protecting a community. So I can say that before I had herpes, before I learned about STDs, I probably would have said the same thing.
Right. And I've heard that before. I've heard that before countless times, especially growing up. Before I was able to start studying or learning about STDs or STIs by myself, it was through conversation that I would get tidbits of information of sex education. And from what I used to hear was, if you want anything, you don't want one of those diseases that stay. And that was what I heard all the time. So it's like, listen, if you have the clap, if you have, gonorrhea, chlamydia, crabs even, I was hearing about, I don't hear about crabs too much these days. But when people would talk about things like that, it's like you can go take a treatment for it. It goes away. You don't have to worry about it again. Or, you know what I mean? You take some ointments, all these different things. People would explain things away, but they're like, but you don't want herpes. You don't want nothing like AIDS. You don't want nothing like HIV because those are things that stick with you. And it was always, so it wasn't even so much that it sticks with you, right? It's about this whole thing that's around the stigma is, if you have that, then what are your options looking like? What is your life looking like after you get one of these diseases that stick? So growing up, that was something that I would hear and that was from young people, older people, men, women, in real life, in movies. The same message was always, I'd rather have, like, if I had to choose, I'd rather get a disease I could just take a pill for every couple of days and it'd be out my system, and I don't have to worry about it again. Okay. But I will give a slight opinion on this, is the fact that the people that I have met that have gotten these treatable infections before and diseases before, they get them multiple times. And I've never had one of those STIs. So the question I always have with them is, how did it happen again? You know, because it seems as if people are protected by these pills where they could treat something, and so they're less careful because their peak right now is chlamydia, right? So it's like, oh, I've had chlamydia before. I got the treatment for it. I'm good now. So if I get it again, I know how to deal with it. But it's like the protection that goes into their future sexual encounters is still not there. So to say that you want to get a chlamydia 100 times over herpes means that you would like to expose yourself to risk 100 times. So that's how I would take it now, and where I'm at is the consideration. And from what I've seen is that when you think it's not so serious, you still play games with your body. You still play games with other people's bodies when you do stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, you said something. What is your life looking like after an STD? I wrote that down. And then I also wrote down, I wish I got the clap. Of course, I wish my herpes was chlamydia. Okay. Because one thing I can say is if my herpes was chlamydia, actually, I can't say that. Because I probably would have still been out here irresponsible, because I did get chlamydia one time before I found out I had herpes. And yet I still got herpes. I think that the person who gets chlamydia or a curable STD over and over and over and over again is someone who is 100,000 times more dangerous and more of a risk than someone who's responsible with HIV. Someone who's responsible with a lifelong STD. For some reason, we have this society has this thought that it's people with STDs. Well, of course, it's people with STDs, but people who know their status that are spreading STDs.
Right. And it's the ones who do not know.
People who don't know. Those are the people we need to watch out for. Those are the people that we need to stigmatize. That is somebody that I used to be. People who have sex just based off of the vibe. I trusted. I was a person who had sex based off the vibe. I love him. I love her. I trust him. I trust her. You know, they wouldn't lie to me about that. I'm going to go ahead and have sex with them. Wiring to see nobody's STD results. I was reckless.
Yes, I've been reckless as well. I've been reckless, and then the next morning start going through his drawers to see if I can find a recent test. Like, Carlie, it's too late.
Late, girl. You got it. Like, it's too late. But it's so easy for us to be reckless. You understand?
Yes.
We don't stigmatize people being reckless. We don't stigmatize that behavior. We praise that behavior. You know, having raw sex. It's in our songs. It's in our music. It's on TV. The jokes about getting a plan B real quick, or being on birth control and feeling now you can have unprotected sex just because you're on birth control.
Right.
It's that narrative, and so much shame is placed on people who know their status when they could have never gotten tested and just been out here just as reckless as y'all and just as wrong as everybody else. I think about people who get chlamydia back to back to back to back to back, and I say they're the most dangerous people because they don't get tested. And they're not requiring test results, obviously, because chlamydia is the most preventable STD. It should be the STD that you don't get.
Right.
HIV can lie dormant in somebody's body. They can test a false negative if their virus is undetectable. When someone with HIV is undetectable, they cannot pass the virus on to their partner. You could be having sex with somebody who has HIV right now and don't know it because they did not tell you. And yes, it's a thing. There's people out here that do not disclose. Laws or not, there's people out here that do not disclose. I was somebody who didn't disclose before. So let's just put that out there. It's just as wrong. That disclaimer, you should be disclosing at all times. And I forgot where I was going with this story now.
Well, I know it had started off with people thinking that it's safer, or it's the people have STIs or STDs that are spreading it.
All right. So I find somebody, right? There's Dick, and then there's Dick and Bob. Dick has HIV. and he is now undetectable. He's had HIV for 10 years, has had a successful relationship, has kids who are HIV negative, and he is living his grand old life.
Mm-hmm.
He knows his status. He hasn't had any other STD after he found out he had HIV. He completely got his life together. And then you had, that was Bob, right?
Right. That was Dick.
You have Dick, who tells you he don't have HIV, but he don't know for sure. You have Dick who tells you he don't have HIV, and then you have sex with Dick because you trust Dick and y'all been talking for months and you love Dick, but you've never required to see Dick's STD results.
Right.
You don't know for sure what Dick has. You just know based off trust. You don't even know for sure if Dick knows for sure what Dick got.
Right.
Did you ask Dick, what's your doctor's name? Where'd you get tested from? Can I see your results? When was the last time? Did you have sex after you got tested? When was the last time you had sex? When was the last time you had unprotected sex? This conversation is so necessary to have before having sex. You're letting somebody in your body, or you're going into somebody else's body. Like, if you're uncomfortable having that conversation, if you're uncomfortable asking somebody for that, then you're not ready to have sex. You shouldn't be having sex. You're not sexually mature enough to have sex.
And if we're being real, you have to think about the accountability in that. And it's the people who assume that they don't have anything, or have gotten tested, their most recent test, so they didn't have it. So they walk around like, I'm in the know, and you know what I mean? And that's good that the people who do get tested so that they do know. But some of the people that I've been around who have actually disclosed to me have been some of the safest people in terms of their consideration of others, have taught me so many things in terms of being safe. And just when it comes to sharing things, when it comes to the way that viruses and diseases, infections work, the way that the medications work for them, the treatments, and how it keeps everyone around them protected and safe. And the considerations they have for people around them is just, I want to make sure that I don't infect anyone. And the flip has been seen for people who just know they're negative and everything. And it's just the arrogance that comes with it. And it brought me to what you were saying about when two people get together and you could be with Dick, right? Now you don't know anything about Dick's status and you didn't ask no questions. And so it's like, y'all do the do, but the two people there have to be held so accountable, because the thing about it is that I find that then when someone who did not have an infection or an STD gets infected, the first thing they do is blame the person. Did you ask? Because if we're going to be real about who's accountable in this situation, it's going to be the people who participated, not even just the person who had the infection, who might not have known, did know and didn't disclose, but where is the accountability for the person who never asked? That's like people, and it's different, but I've seen this come up so much, and it's a thought that's on my brain. It's like allergies, right? If someone is allergic to a certain food or they have certain dietary restrictions, it's usually on them, right? When they come into a place to say, hey, does this have so-and-so in it? Does this have so-and-so in it? Everybody's like, well, why didn't they just put labels? Well, they don't know what everybody might be allergic to. So some places you have to go, and because you know that you are allergic to nuts, you're going to ask. So it's not the same type of thing, but it's, if you know that you like to make sure that you are STI and STD free, if you know that you like to engage in consensual, safe sex on all accounts, it is your responsibility to also come in with the questions. Don't expect to show up and everybody's going to have different labels on them for you to know whether or not you're with it. You have to ask these questions, because if you ever contract something and you start questioning yourself or anything like that, or go point the blame, the reality is there's two people that played a part. You have to take full accountability of your health. You have to ask the important questions. Otherwise, you have to take ownership of what happens later. And I find that's something that goes down too, even if it's not something that's an incurable disease or something that can just be like a short-term infection, I guess. There's that blame there. He should have told me. She should have told me. Oh, she's so nasty because she would offer me that.
Yeah. There's no accountability.
Accountability.
I've been talking about that lately within the herpes community is you consented to that sex. This one girl was like, I did require test results and he didn't give it to me and da 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 da. And I'm like, you still had sex with him. That
you have to look at the type of sex that you consent to. You consent to sex where you do not require STD results, or you consented to sex where you took someone's word.
Yeah. And this is why I don't believe in, but I kind of want the STD contraction laws gone. Because it's not fair that the responsibility is only put on a certain type of person.
Right.
I can be punished if I don't disclose my status. So I can no longer live a life, you know what I'm saying, where I'm just going into a sexual relationship like normal people. They literally singling people out. People with HIV can have the death penalty. Wow. They can go to jail for life because for not disclosing and doing the same thing that the person without the virus is doing. And to me, that is not fair. And it gives this false sense of security because now people who don't get tested or who is not aware of, their sexual health or even their sexual health history, they have this false sense of security of if someone has HIV, if someone has herpes, if someone has a lifelong STD in general, they're supposed to tell me or they can get in trouble. Right. So if the person don't tell me, that must mean that I'm good to go. Right.
And bigger than that too, and sorry, not to cut you off, and sad to say, is if they don't look like it.
That part, I get that a lot. Yeah. You don't look like you have herpes. What the fuck? Am I supposed to look like a giant bump?
Right.
What am I supposed to look like, y'all?
Sorry, I did not supposed to put my herpes face on today.
What am I supposed to look like? I'm supposed to get it tatted? Like, what am I supposed to do? But
but people like, oh, they have full body, full face, da. Okay.
You're so pretty to have herpes, huh?
Right.
Herpes don't discriminate, y'all. And it's so funny. There's this like shame put on hoes. Like you say the hoes are the ones who get the STDs. A lot of the hoes that I know are the most sexually responsible people that I know.
Right.
It's the people who have one body, two bodies, three bodies. They never require STD results. The people who don't require STD results, because it's not a thing. It's not a normal thing. And the conversation is not normal. Then again, it gets me right back into the consent. Why is it that with or without an STD, you're supposed to have that conversation before having sex?
Right.
And it's not fair that penalties is only placed on one of those people when that conversation is not had.
Right.
It's sad. It's kind of like, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't have the sex talk conversation with you before having sex. But if you do the same thing as me, you're going to be okay.
Right.
That's effed up to me. And then I also say without the STD contraction laws, it puts more responsibility on everyone. It kind of says, listen, we're going to get rid of these STD contraction laws. So you have to now make sure you're having those conversations because someone with an STD doesn't have to tell you. They have the same right of going into sex, just like you go into sex.
Right.
You can't assume by having sex with me that I don't have anything.
Yes.
You can assume that if you want to and make your decision based on that. But I can also assume that you have herpes.
Right.
And I don't have to say anything because you have herpes just like me. Someone with HIV can assume that you have HIV.
Right.
that's the fairness of everything. Why
Exactly. Like if we're assuming.
assume? Yeah. Why doesn't only one person get to assume and then everyone else gets in trouble when they make the same assumption that you did? It's just not fair. Back to the topic. The topic is I'd rather have chlamydia. In the beginning, you mentioned it's that the thought of what does my life look like after a lifelong STD? And I love that you brought that up. One thing I do say is the stigma is felt by the community because we place it on ourselves the minute we find out. The world doesn't know yet. No one knows yet. So we don't feel the stigma from anyone else but ourselves. It's because we believe it. And the large part of that stigma is, what does my life look like after a lifelong virus? With me, I had no connection to my yoni anymore. I didn't feel sexy anymore. I felt like nobody would want me. I started creating all these ideas about my life because now that I have herpes, which wasn't true. Now, I hate when my thoughts do this to me. So what does my life look like? I lost my train of thought again.
Okay. You were talking about how it's you who stigmatizes yourself because when you find out, it's before anybody else knows.
Yes. So you stigmatize yourself after you find out, and you go out into the world and your subconscious picks everything that proves you right. You start seeing the stigma everywhere in your life.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. Then you create this new narrative for yourself. Now, for me, I had to, the pill that I had to swallow was, why do I feel worthless just because I took a hit? Just because I have an STD? It's like a hit on my sex life, a hit on my sexy, and all of a sudden I feel worthless. What is my worth? Who am I? How am I showing up? Did my worth only amount to sex this whole entire time? And if I didn't get herpes, would it still amount to sex till this day? A lifelong virus has a tendency of bringing a lot of shit to the surface, a lot of stuff to the surface. When people find out they have a STD, a lifelong STD, and they think they're dirty and they think nobody will ever want them and they think their life is over and they have to settle their boundaries, they have to lower their boundaries. They felt this way about themselves before.
They have to realize they had self-worth issues before the diagnosis even came.
And what the herpes does is just brings it to the surface. It forces you to deal with it so you can get over the fact that you have herpes.
Yes.
Versus without the herpes, I didn't have that push outside of my son. And I found out I was going to be a mom and have herpes at the same time. Outside of my son, herpes it was the jump start to my journey, the jump start to my healing, because there's a lot of things I had to uncover to feel like myself again. So I guess with all that being said, back to the question, what is your life looking like after a lifelong STD? Before me and my herpes could never movement, how would you answer that question? You just found out you had HIV.
Okay, so to be 100% honest, I'd probably have a total breakdown. A total breakdown. My mind would automatically go into privacy mode. I probably would stay away from people because I probably would not. In terms of sexually and dating wise, I'd probably isolate myself. For fear of having the conversation, for fear of judgment, for fear of, I wouldn't even want to engage probably because I wouldn't want to, I'd probably start taking medications, but my thought would still be, listen, let me give these medications like 5-6 months to kick in. So I know that I wouldn't infect anybody. I think I'd probably lie once I got my medications under control. I don't know if I would tell anybody right away. I don't know if I would. Or if I would just like commit a life to being single. Like Carlie was single, Carlie's single forever. I'm going to marry myself to a cat. I'm going to go have a commitment ceremony with Carlie. And I'd probably make up a whole thing, you know? But I would also speak to people that I know have contracted it. I would go seek support, you know, because I do, I think, and what's crazy is that's the blessing of being someone that people trust, is that if I was ever in the situation, I'd have people that I could go to that have trusted me in advance with, you know what I mean, with their status. And so those would probably be some of the first phone calls I made. Yeah. Like, because I don't know if I'd be able to talk to anybody who in that moment I didn't think could relate. And I think in that moment would be like, no, the only people who could relate to me right now is the people who have gotten the same type of news that has been in my literal shoes before. But how I was, my self-worth issues would definitely come to the surface, because it would be around the same lines of, my whole thing for a while was really just was connected to men and the relationships that I could build and exploring sexually. And I was a late starter when it came to sex. So, oh my gosh. So I don't even know what I would do, especially if you add that part in, the fact that it's like, damn, has my sex career been this short? Like, is this the end for me? You know what I mean? In my head. And I don't have children yet either. So I don't know all of these thoughts that would come into my mind about the possibility of me having children. Yeah. The risk that I could be, you know, putting my future children in. Mm-hmm. All of these things would probably be on my mind. But like I said, the first thing I would do was isolate myself and just probably be around some people I thought could relate until I could face myself enough to face other people. Yes. Because I take pressure on easily.
Yeah. Well, I respect you for your 100% honesty, because that's exactly what people go through when they find out they have STDs. And I was fortunate to have someone come to me in my DMs and say, I got tested because of you. And I found out I had herpes afterwards. And she was like, I'm just so happy that I found you and got to know you in your platform before the herpes stigma ever had a chance of getting me. Right. And I think that will be, I'm listening to you speak and I'm like, yo, wow, I got to create something like some type of prompt, some type of journal for people who don't have STDs so that they can probably do the work, because they say herpes is inevitable. By the time you're 50, 95% of your generation is going to have herpes. It's just as common as your common cold. And it's out here. I didn't know that until after I got herpes. But more people in this world have herpes than people who do not have herpes. And this is all strands. This is not just HSV1 or HSV2. This is your chicken pox. Every 90s baby had it. This is mono. This is the shingles. This is it's so many different strands. Right. Different types. I can't say strands before Rich Mancuso gets on me, but there's so many different types of herpes. But anyway, back to healing. Create something that states, how would you feel if you found out you had a lifelong STD? That someone who doesn't have a lifelong STD can really sit with themselves and list all their feelings, all the emotions about it. Mm-hmm. Yes. Ask them, how would you overcome that? Why do you feel this way? Does these feelings have anything to do with the fact that you caught the STD, or are these feelings you already have about yourself? A lot of us have to go through that process afterwards. I want to figure out a way where people can go through that process before, right? Especially if you're going to be out here having reckless sex. The 10 times you caught chlamydia could have been the one time you got HIV, could have been the one time you got herpes. Most women have HPV. It could be the one time you got hepatitis A, B, or C. It could have been your one time having a lifelong virus. Point blank. Right. So you have no room to judge. I want to end it on herpes is the least harmful STD there is. Yes, it stays, but it is the least harmful STD. It doesn't do anything to your body, but you may have an outbreak. And out of the herpes community, only a small percentage, I think it's under 20% of people actually experience outbreaks. It's just like HPV. We hear about HPV a lot, but we don't hear about genital warts. Well, genital warts is a symptom of HPV along with cervical cancer. But not many people experience genital warts because of their HPV diagnosis. Down to chlamydia, down to the curable diseases. Some people don't experience symptoms. You can think good. Well, my cat not smelling nothing. My discharge hasn't changed. And you can still have chlamydia. You can still have gonorrhea. You can get these STDs in your mouth. I'm pretty sure no one's requiring to see STD results before kissing people.
Right.
And with kissing, you can get HIV, you can get herpes, you can get syphilis, you can get gonorrhea in your throat. You can still get STDs. So get tested, y'all. Require the test results. Learn about your STDs. Chlamydia, even though it's curable is harmful. It will ruin your reproductive system and stop you from having children. The same thing with gonorrhea. Syphilis can kill you. Yes, it's curable, but it will kill you if you don't know about it. It's important to know your status. Herpes can sit in your body. It can lie dormant. You cannot know that you have it. You can test a false negative, but STDs like chlamydia and syphilis, even HIV. HIV, it's more safer to be, well, if you don't want to get an STD, you're better off with somebody who has HIV than you are with somebody with herpes. Herpes is way more contagious. HIV is more in control. They can control it more, depending on the person. And if they know, their virus and what to do and they're on their medication, they can control it more. But these other STDs, they're not under control. Yes, you can cure them, but they're not under control. So it's important for y'all to get tested. It's important for you to be requiring to see STD results. And Carlie, you have anything to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would just say, really consider what consent means to you, consensual sex means to you. Are you letting the other person know everything that they're consenting to by sleeping with you? And that includes and not includes STIs and STDs, but it goes further than that, sexual history. And that's the other way around is, when you say that you are consenting to sex, are you consenting to actual safe sex? And are you taking the right steps to make sure that it's truly consenting?
Yes.
Because in the end, there's no one to blame really, because you are consenting to what you're going into. So it's really consider what consensual sex means to you going forward is what I would say, because that's something I had to take into account for myself too.
Okay. Well, thank you, Queen. Can you let everyone know how they can find you?
Yes. So I have way too many Instagram pages, but the main one that you could follow is at Carlie Rock. It's there where I'll be making announcements about any changes I'll be doing and where I provide the majority of my personality and information. So at Carlie Rock on Instagram.
Thank you. And my name again is Shayna Singleton, aka the Herpes Goddess, founder of the Herpes Can Never movement. Herpes Can Never has its own personal YouTube page as well. Go check it out. Like, subscribe, share. You can also find me at Shayna Singleton on Instagram, or just go to the main page and click that link tree in the bio, and you can find me on all social media platforms. Thank you all. We love you. Peace, love, and light.